Hello there, Chris here from Becker's Models. I want to review Airfix's 1/24th scale Harrier GR3. Now, this is quite an old kit. It was reboxed in 1997, but it was originally molded in 1974, so it's older than me. So that says a lot. I am a card-carrying member of the Tamiya Fanboy Club. I love my Tamiya kits, but unfortunately in the larger scales, 1/32 and above, Mr. Tamiya has only made about 10 unique subjects, and of the jets only one is really top quality, the F-16. So when you want to go big and you want to expand outside that narrow scope, you've got to look at other manufacturers, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, you've got to look at Airfix. So today, shall we see what an old Airfix kit looks like? Is it redeemable, or is it just too much to consider in today's era of U-Butte modern shake and bake kits? You might be surprised. Let's go inside and have a look. This is Airfix's ancient boxing of the highly innovative and brilliant British Hawker Siddeley Harrier, the most successful VSTOL, or vertical short takeoff and landing aircraft of all time. It was used most famously during the Falklands War, and it was adopted by the US Marines and other nations beside the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy. The RAF Ground Attack GR3 version had a laser tracker added to the nose and an uprated Pegasus engine and a few other things. All of the versions now have been replaced by the hugely versatile F-35B, but the Harrier has definitely left its mark on history. The Harrier has been produced by quite a few manufacturers, so we're lucky as modelers, but you know, being British, Airfix were there from the start. And they made 1/72, 1/48 and the big scale 1/24ths. In fact, they were one of the first on the market with what was considered then a modern kit with recessed panel lines, recessed rivets. This was first boxed in 1974 as the GR Mark I RAF version. It was subsequently reboxed and added parts along the way to do the GR Mark III and the Navy Sea Harrier variants. The last red box sort of reboxed version Harrier was available from 2010, and these kits still sell secondhand for what seems like a lot of money for an ancient kit compared to the modern releases from, like, say, Hobby Boss or Tamiya or Trumpeter. Trumpeter do make a 1/32 big scale kit. They cover most versions, but they have quite a few accuracy issues, and while Kinetic has cornered the 1/48 market, taking over from Hasegawa with their new Harrier kits. But in the big scales, does this old kit really measure up? Let's look inside the box, but before we do, look at that fantastic box art firing off a Sidewinder missile. Now, fair warning here, this is almost exactly how it came. This was shrink wrapped when I bought this online, so yeah, I haven't done much to inside. Basically, it's just all the parts are thrown in. Okay. This hasn't changed much with Airfix. The way they box up their stuff is quite frankly, their quality control is rubbish. All right, I had to do this. There was all these. There was the pilot. There was all these parts. Even the clear sprue just left to rattle around in the box. The only thing that was wrapped in plastic was the main engine sprues, and there's another sprue underneath here. I'll have a look. See, all this was just left like this to rattle around. All the parts come off. And the wings were left to scuff against each other. Thankfully it hasn't done too much. You know, instructions are just thrown in. Fuselage halves just thrown in. Yeah, the only thing that was left was this last sprue, which you can tell is a different colour. And that's the tail and the nose for the GR Mark III version. But yeah, and then at the bottom here is this massive, I don't know, it's probably A1, A2 sized decal sheet. It's huge, it's as big as the box. Let me just get this mess, inexcusable mess, out of here, and we'll go over and I'll see if there's any damage or anything. Oop, found another part just flying around in there. Yeah, oop, there we go. Look, I'm even seeing damage and scuff marks already. Alright, let me have a look at this closely. Let's look at the instructions first for the Harrier. I've got the instruction booklet, because it is a booklet, it's 20 some pages, and this really large fold out colour call out sheet, which is really good of Airfix to do, you know, full colour instructions of all the various options that you've got. I'll put that aside and look at that later. Let's have a look at the instructions first. Opening the instruction booklet, and it's a full A4 size, just normal copy paper booklet. We've got an inside pages, we've got a history in 5 languages, and the paint callouts are all in Humbrol enamels, which are good for some, not for me. Try to find some equivalents, it shouldn't be too hard to do. Okay, again, you've got the don't glue yourself together, don't eat the parts, don't lick the paint. Callouts there. There are a couple of assembly icons there to take a note of. But let's get started into the instructions and see what they start with. And look at that. Number 1, it's a pilot. I'm going to zoom in. We start with the cockpit and we start with a pilot. So what's interesting here is they occasionally call out, you know, the variant one, the variant or the type RAF or what have you. And as you go along, it can be a little bit confusing. So I would recommend, if you need to decide on the variant you want to do first, have a little notebook set aside and note what part of the instructions, you know, because you might not want to do the GR3, you might want to do the GO1, you might want to do the marine version, the AV8A. Anyway, let's go ahead. And there's not a minute, that's it, that's the entire cockpit. You know, half a dozen parts, you know, a bulkhead, a tub, a back, the ejection seat's 2 parts, which is, you know, when I have a look at that a bit more closer, that might be a bit disappointing. So yeah, like I said, it really calls out for more detail, particularly this scale, but at least it's got a seated pilot and it looks like he's posed with his hands on the controls, so that's a good start. Moving on to the engine, the big Pegasus engine, you can see where the 4 nozzles come out, and it says here not to glue this apparatus here because they're all articulated and they articulate together, so it is technically a working engine. And I have seen one, someone's done it online, where they've spun up the engine so you can actually see the fan moving through that massive inlet door. It'll be a fun project to do. So the engine construction continues. There's that fan. So we've got, looks like nicely separated blades. It'll be interesting to have a look at that up close. And there's the going into the main engine bodies, and then we've got some greeblies and pumps and switches going on next, which you probably won't see if this is all buttoned up, so you've got to work out which parts you want to fit, which ones you don't. We're still going with the engine. We've got a lot of parts here. Now we've got the assembly for the nozzles, which are the back end of the nozzles actually, and then I'm not sure what these are for. That might be the main wheel well. Then we get to the inlets, and they, as I noted here, different color. It's different color callouts from the look of it, I think. Yeah, different color callouts for the inside of the inlets. That makes sense because you have different camouflage. And you've got to cut some parts away for the in-flight refueling probe. And then we get a very messy, busy, you know, side of fuselage construction piece here, and we've got that main wheel well bit. I wish they would tell you in the instructions what part you're building. Like, you know, that's the air brake housing, and that's, you know, the side bulkhead for that, and that's the shield for the nozzle. I mean, it adds to the, you know, the benefit of wanting to, adds to the enjoyment of it. Anyway, we've got a option down here to remove a bit of plastic, so you put it on Airfix's infamous big flight stand. Then we get the other side of the fuselage, and we drop that big, massive Pegasus engine in there. And look at that, there's a lot of these black squares telling you, don't glue, don't glue, don't glue. So it looks like, yeah, the tail planes look like they're posable, they're movable. Yep, and there we go, we got articulated nose wheel doors and the main gear doors. So yeah, that's an interesting feature. See if it's might be a bit too gimmicky. I'll have to see what the fit's like. Now we get to the nozzles themselves, putting them together, and the tails. We've got the tie, the Spain, the RAF and the Spain versions. Okay, there's different tail versions there, and different tail cone versions there as well. Okay, as again, you got to keep an eye out. There's so many different variants that you do here. If you want to do the front, if you want to modify to the GR3, you have to cut the nose off. That's already molded into the fuselage halves, and put these on separately. That's going to be fun. And there's an even secondary modification there for the 1453 flight. So as I said, this is not a simple Airfix kit that you just slam together over a weekend. It's got a lot going on. Alright, we've got the Marine Corps, US Marine Corps version. Their tail's different for the AV8, and a different tail cone as well. And moving down, we put our nozzles finally on. In-flight refueling probe, if you need to, big question mark, that's for different variants. And windshield, cockpit shroud, and a few other inlet pipes and so forth. We're getting there. Now it's the landing gear. We've got the wingtip wheels here, Again, looks like, yep, they don't glue them together, so you can articulate them. You've got the flaps, or the ailerons actually, sorry. Moving on, we're starting to put the wing together, so you've got the bottom one-piece wing and then the upper wings go there. Next stage is the wingtips. There are different wingtips for the ferry flights for the GR3s. And then finishing the top of the wing, we put the main piece in there. Hopefully that's not too big a seam to fill in the middle. So the wing goes on top of the fuselage, and there's another piece that goes just behind the cockpit, and we've got the canopy, which supposedly is movable. So that's interesting. Moving on to main landing gear parts, and I believe these are rubber, which is unfortunate. I wonder if you can get some resin replacements. Oh, we can see the staples now, so we're halfway through. Gee, it's a complicated build, isn't it? More than I expected. So we've got the, looks like the speed brake housing, the main landing gear, we've got the covers for the tips. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And then we've got the options, there we are. So we've got the options for full in flights. Everything's wheels up, boom, 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 which is how I really want to do this. I'd love to do it in the hover, but I'll just see how it goes. Now we get to armament. We've got the gun pods there, or we get the ventral strakes to be fitted. Then we have the wing pylons going on and to be fitted on the wings. And then basically the rest of this is just doing ordnance, different ordnance. So you got, big dumb bombs. You've got some early types of the AIM-9 Sidewinder, and you've got some later types. You've got the L, the Lima, the D. So they've got different seeker heads and so forth. Different fuel tanks to put on. Rocket pods. I'd really like to do the rocket pods for the RAF version, and there's the options for the to do the flight stand. Alright, this is nice and clear. I really like how they've done this. Airfix have split up the 4 different armament sort of, well, I mean, yeah, there's not just one, there's multiple types of what you can carry on the Harrier. So they've done the GR3 at the top there, and then you've got the Marine Corps, then the Spanish ones. And then you've got the RAF ferry when they were flying them down to the Falklands with just fuel tanks. So yeah, that's actually quite clear to read. It is complicated, but if you did, like I said, take some notes, you'll be fine. Alright, the instructions continue this way for the generic markings for the stencils and so forth. And again, there's a very complicated key. There's 5 different types that you can put here. So again, take a lot of note what you need to put where. And it continues again on the next page. There's a lot to go on here. And more. And more. And lastly, they give you a full page of corrections of things they said, oh, hang on, you've got to put this here, this there. So again, have that notebook ready to make sure that you haven't done the wrong thing. Take your time. Okay, there's an A4 nice big sheet, a nice colour printed of the colour callouts for the 5 different variants that you can do within the kit. We've got the 92 RAF German-based Harriers there with the really lovely tail fin flash. Say that 3 times quickly. Okay, that's version A. More famous version would be version B, which is down at the Falklands, fighting the Argentinians. Then we've got the BAe Harrier, which is the US Marine Corps back in the late 70s. It's got a really nice, blue and white rudder there. Slightly different underneath. We've got the, looks like just a dull grey underneath. Then we've got the Spanish version here, the Armada, which is an overall grey with some white underneath. Could be interesting for a different subject. And finally we've got the AV8S, the Royal Thai Navy version, which again is, like most naval stuff, is grey and white or dull grey. Let's look at the decals. Oh, hang on, I might need to zoom out. Let's just zoom out and I'll show you how big. Look at this, look at this, look at this. It's huge. Takes up the whole sheet. Okay, it's like 50 centimeter wide sheet of decals. And they're pretty bloody good, I must admit. They're really good. The stencils look great. I can read some of them. Some of them are out of register here and there. They're not brilliant. Some of these red coloured ones, I better zoom back in. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay. Some of these red ones are a little bit better. Yeah, overall look pretty good. They're very flat. The ones that I would prefer, yeah. So we got the German the RAF station in Germany, and yeah, at this scale, you really don't want to be decaling. Well, I wouldn't. I mean, you can if you want. There's almost no carrier film on these, so you know you'd get away with putting down roundels like that, no problem. Just make sure you've got some good decal setting solutions. But as I said, look at that, it's massive. What am I going to do with all this leftover decals? Time to have a look at what's in the box. The Sprue Tour, as I call it. This is the Airfix Arrowhead display stand. If you want to do it in flight, there's a few extra parts here. I think they engineer so it can connect to some of the major parts under the fuselage. Yeah, it's alright. I've used a couple of these in my time, but I think there's better options out there if you want to do something in flight. Let's start with the actual kit parts. Now, first glance when I look at this, and I'm reminded why Airfix is not my favourite company. They make some good kits, don't get me wrong. They do some really lovely stuff, but okay, and it is an old kit. Okay, you've got to make a couple of provisos here and there. But first thing is there is a little bit of texture on all the parts, a bit of pebbling sort of texture. I'll see if I can capture that there with the camera. It's not something to be that concerned about. A good coat of primer and a good primer, I would use a Mr. Surfacer or a Stynylrez, will level that out, so that's not that big a problem. You can see how this is one of these wobbly sprues, all the parts come off. So all I really want to comment on with these parts is, yeah, the sprue attachment points, we're talking 1970s, 1980s, they're a bit big, they're a bit chunky. I'd be using more saws than I would be using sprue cutters because you might actually damage the piece. There's a fair bit of flash, you've got flash on almost all the pieces. And if, okay, we zoom in, as we can see on this piece here, look at those massive rivets. They're really big. Now I need to do more research, but I'm pretty sure most of them shouldn't be there. And I've seen quite a few builds where people have covered these up. Having said that, the panel lines are beautiful. They're really lovely. They're in scale. I mean, you don't sometimes get panel lines like that even on 132. They're fantastic. The recessed panel lines and around the hatches, that's fantastic. And even these grills, although I'm sure some photo etch will be replacing those. Those inlets need to be drilled out for a bit of scale accuracy. But yeah, overall, look, this is the thing with Airfix. You've got to take the good with the bad, the rough with the smooth. And yeah, so far, it's what I'm expecting from them. So here we get some tail parts, and yeah, there's flash pretty much around every major piece around the edges. Not that hard to get rid of. Just take some care with a sharp knife. A lot of those rivets everywhere. I really hope that they can be covered up nicely. There are sink marks here in the doors. Again, just some application of some good lacquer-based putty. Some really weird texture on some of these parts. I don't know what that looks like. Tooling marks. It's really strange. Now let's go to the inside of these inlet doors. I believe, and yep, they're all covered in flash. I believe, it's not too bad. There's no ejection pin marks in there, and it's got these ribs on there. Am I showing that correctly? Sorry if I can't get it in the camera. But yeah, a lot of these things are going to have to be cut away. Again, yeah, on these auxiliary doors. I'm not showing it that well, sorry. You've got parts for the nozzles there. I'll keep going. So this sprue contains the cockpit tub, which is okay. It's got some raised dials and the throttle quadrant there. See if I'll just zoom in manually there. It's okay, it's a good starting point. Right, we've got the external nozzle, the main nozzle pieces that are halves, and there are one or two minor ejection pins, but they should be easy to get to with a skinny stick to get rid of those. I'm just going to flip this over. We've obviously got some Sidewinder back halves here and some fuel tanks. We've got some raised panel lines there, which actually might be accurate. I think some of these fuel tanks have a raised weld seam there. Yeah, it's okay. The detail's pretty good. It's okay. There's a little bit of flash here and there, and then, you know, some of the attachment points like this is just bound to fall off, so I'll take that off when I'm finished. All right, next we get a few more pieces here. We've got landing gear parts, we've got some articulation parts, and there's that ejection seat, which has really got no detail on it. You know, it's really bland, and there's the backing piece. Two pieces, that's it. Yeah, I'd want to be upgrading that. The rocket nozzle heads, which are just floating. Oh, there goes one. just floating around. Actually, they're cut really nicely. It's quite crisp on some of those edges there, so that's not too bad. Can't really complain that much. Got some bomb halves there, bomb ends, more sidewinder pieces, and the pylons. The pylons don't seem to have much in terms of scribe detail on them. I'll have to have a look at that on the references, see if you have to add some detail. They're big enough that it's easy to do. More ordnance going on here, lots of parts. Again, it's actually not too bad. It looks like there's no mismolds, there's no sort of seams going anywhere. There's the occasional bit of flash. It's that typical really weird sprue attachments that Airfix use. I'd be very careful cutting them off because you might take away too much than what you want. Yeah. Like I said, pleasantly surprised, but to be expected. You know, you're going into this, and it's not a new tool kit, so you know. Oop, another spare part. All right, almost done with the sprues. Then we can get to the wing and the fuselage. So that engine's about to fall off. So that's the Pegasus engine, and it's got some nice rib detail on it. And there it goes. Sorry about that. But that's really exciting. I like that. I like how the fan, the individual, you can see all the individual blades. I was worried that was going to be. There's a little bit of flash on it. Oh no, that's not too hard to get rid of. I was worried that was going to be a solid piece. So that leads me to, you know, you could spin that up even. That'd look fantastic. And you got some of the greebly parts that go on top of the engine, which you're not going to see unless you have the wing off. Yeah, it's okay. It's a little bit soft. It's not, like I said, you know, it's a little bit, yeah, a little bit soft. It's okay. Again, I'm doing a lot of forgiveness. Oh, another part I just found. All right. And here are the top wing. Hang on. Here are the top wings. Again, they just keep falling off. This is what happens when you have parts rolling around doing nothing. Okay, so let's look at that wing a bit closer. Can you see that in the detail there? So we've got the nice vortex generators on the leading edge of the wing. This has actually got really nice detail. It's got that pebbly texture again, but I think just a coat of Mr. Surfaces should level that out. There's not as many rivets here. There's lots of access panels. Come on, camera, get it. You got it? You see it? See those access panels everywhere? They're really well done. The recessed panel lines, they're fantastic. God, Airfix, why don't you do that now with all your kits? These are great. Oh yeah, I'm stoked about that. That's really good. Because you're going to see that upper wing, that's going to be really visible. Here's the lower one-piece wing. Yep. And again, you've got the same sort of effect. Let's see if I might be overpowering the camera there. There's a few more rivets there. Again, I'm going to have to check references, but the recessed panel lines look fantastic. There's only the hint of a bit of flash. Got some really major sprue points you're just going to be super careful with. Sharp knife, or I would use a saw actually, because this plastic is very soft. So Airfix give you vinyl wheels. Now they do have a seam line going through them, but it should be fairly easy to get rid of. Yeah, there's a couple of mismolds and some flash on them. They're not the best. This is old school technology. If you can, I do believe you can get resin wheels for them, but they're hard to find. So yeah, another reason to do that, wheels up. Before I look at the fuselage halves, I have to look at the clear parts. Now they come on, well, this one didn't even come on it's got a technical sprue there, but you know, it's got scuff marks all the way down the back there and a lot of distortion, as you can see over my bench. You know, don't drink anything while you're watching this. It's okay. It's at least there's no seam. I know there's no seam running now, but you have to put a detonation cord over the top of that canopy. And yeah, I hope that's not a mold problem there with that lip at the front. See how that misforming sort of shape? I hope that's actually endemic to the kit. Yes, I'm going to put them away now and never touch them again. There's some scuff marks, and the clarity is not the best. But we're spoiled these days. So here we come to what really makes this kit stand out amongst the rest. We're talking a 66 or something, 2 feet long almost kit. I mean, 1/24 scale is a big scale. The Harrier is not that big an aircraft. Okay, so it's about the same size as a 132, or a bit longer I should say. It's a bit longer than a 132 Spitfire, but yeah, it's a lovely size. Now looking at this fuselage, there's a lot of rivets going on here. I'll see if I can zoom in so you can see what's going on, catch them in the light there. Again, like the wing pieces, the recessed panel lines are beautifully done, very fine, very petite. There's a hint of flash here and there, but yeah, I do wonder how this is going to go together. We've got a couple of sink marks. We always have to worry about that. Have a look at the inside. Wherever there's male and female attachment points, there's likely to be sink marks, and yep, there it is. There's one across there. That's just part and parcel of the old molding technology. So yeah, this is going to build up to an impressive kit, but just be forewarned. I almost forgot the GR Mark III pieces. Here's the separate sprue that came in its own bag, but pieces still came off. I've got a few pieces missing that I've tucked away now. I've got pitot tubes. We've got the different tail, which at least is in the same sort of overdone recessed rivet pattern as the rest of the kit. The panel lines are about the same. They're a little bit more, no, they're about the same. I was going to say they're more chunky, but they're not. They're fine. They do seem to disappear though as they get around the corner to the top here, so a bit of rescribing is required. And the nose looks okay. I would not glue that together and put it on the fuselage. I would glue them separately on the separate fuselage halves and then bring them together. That way you won't get a step around here. That's how I do it. You can do it any way you want. Alright, let's call that finished Sprue Tour. One of the ways you can improve the quality of the Airfix kit is to pick up one of these Flightpath detail and weapon sets. I haven't really looked at this one that much. I'm going to go through it. It says it's got new cockpit, ejector seat, front undercarriage, airframe, engine, air brakes. It's got 2 missiles, cluster bomb, access ladder, FOD guards, wheel chocks, and a few other little things. Let's have a look inside. What do we get? Okay. So here are the contents. I've knolled them all out. You've got a massive, several sheets of photo etch here. Yeah, so much. It's actually, looks like 3 or 4 sheets. A nice big cluster bomb made out of resin, and surprise surprise, some wheels. So that's a good replacement. They look really well cast. Don't know what those 2 long things are. I'll have a look in a minute. We've got the foreign object device, foreign object debris, I don't forget what they're called, FOD covers. You put in the inlets. I won't use those because I'll probably have mine in flight. I don't know what those little knobs are. I haven't even read the instructions. I don't know what's in here. So this is all white metal, you know, a lead alloy, something or other. That's the front undercarriage. That'll give you a lot more strength. Yeah, it's really well molded. I'm just looking through the bags. And it looks like some hoses and some other, yep, undercarriage parts. And then finally we get a small decal sheet with a film for and some rope for the wheel chocks. Supposed to be some wheel chocks there. Maybe that's what I was fondling just then. Yeah, that looks really good. I'm going to have a look at the instructions and see what we get. So the instructions are quite comprehensive. I mean, there's almost a dozen sheets here on A4 paper, and he goes through every section on what areas to fit. And wow, there's a lot of things going on here. This is really going to up the detail, and the instructions are very clear. Paragraph by paragraph, he really goes into what to do, and yeah, this is going to take a long time. It's a really clear CAD style instructions there on how to assemble the missile and the undercarriage. And then we have the cockpit itself. This is going to be the most complicated because pretty much the entire cockpit is replaced with photo etch. And if you're not that much of a fan of bending and finagling things and getting things done, well, yeah, it looks like there's only a couple of kit parts left over in the green there. So that is going to be an exercise. That's a kit in itself. So then we get to the cluster bomb, which has got all raised rivets on it in one piece. It's really lovely. The ejection seat, which was a major flaw, I think, of the kit. I think it's got 2 pieces from memory. Yeah, this is not 2 pieces. That's quite a few. Look, they give you 1 piece left over. No, you'll probably do that yourself. And then moving on, we've got, oh, this must be the ladder. Yep, the foreign object guards and wheel chocks, a little storage bin, and just a few more notes. I mean, this kit is, oh, it's not a kit. Well, it is a kit, really. Well, weapons, detail weapon set. This can cost almost as much as getting the kit itself, but I think it's well worth it. You're going to end up with a superbly well detailed kit. There is more aftermarket available from Heritage Aviation, I believe. I'll have another look at ScaleMates, and we might scroll through and have a look what's there. And yeah, this is a real money sink because you can really go to town with this one. And I do intend to build it. I do think it's worth doing because, you know, the Harrier is such a fascinating subject. Well, there you have it. If you want something impressively large and you really love old school Airfix modelling, then this kit's for you. However, this will also appeal to modelers who really want to up that detail and want lots of extra options, and they like the complexity of a build that something like this will entail. However, it may require some more aftermarket, like that Flightpath set I showed you, and I would dare say a lot of extra scratch building and other details are added, especially that cockpit. It may be too much of a slog to remove those big rivet details, and you're definitely going to need your intermediate to advanced modelling skills to do the intake surgery and fitting the whole bloody thing together. It's definitely not for the shake and bake modeler. This is no Tamiya Wingnut Wings kit. It's an old kit. You've got to expect something. Of its time, it was advanced, and it was, you know, it was very good. I mean, those recessed panel lines are great. You really have to be passionate about the subject here, and you may run out of mojo if you're expecting an easy fitting kit. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that look and my review of Airfix's 1/24th scale Harrier. If you really liked that video, leave me a like. It'll help me out a lot. Leave a comment, particularly if you want to see some more reviews like this one. And if you're going to subscribe, remember to hit that little bell thingy. I don't know what it does, but apparently it tells you, hey, Chris has uploaded another video. So until next time, I'll see you later. Cheers, happy modelling.